Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for Monday, April the 15th. Councilmember Summers is not with us. He's out of town and is excused, and Vice Mayor Heredia is attending virtually, but will be joining us in person in a little while. All the rest of our council are present. Item 1 on our agenda for this meeting is to review tonight's council meeting agenda. I know we just went over this a few days ago, but council, any questions regarding tonight's agenda? I know on the consent agenda is the appointment of Judge Umpleby. So I think I'll just make mention of that prior to reading the consent agenda, because that's a significant thing, and I believe Judge Umpleby will be present, and I might invite him to share some thoughts with us. But I think it's okay to leave it on the consent agenda, but just to allow him the opportunity to share some thoughts. That being said, Council, anything else on tonight's agenda that you'd like any additional information on? Okay.
Mayor, can you check that Heredia is on the line? I don't know that he's on the line.
Okay. Mr. Vice Mayor, can you hear us? Okay. Well, I think he's not on the line, so maybe we'll see him in person here in a minute. I know he's traveling from another commitment and will be here before too long. All right, moving forward, item 2 on our agenda for this meeting is a presentation and discussion on the Energy Resources Department budget. So, Mr. Boucher, looks like you got a good team with you.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Scott Boucher. I'm the Energy and Sustainability Director here at the City of Mesa, and I'm joined today by Anthony Cadorn, who's our Program Manager, Kyle Nicholson, who's the Superintendent over our electric utility, and John Petroff, who's our Senior Fiscal Analyst. So first, I'd like to just take a moment to thank you for that slide. Take a moment to thank the folks within the Energy Resources Department who work every day towards our public purpose, which is providing safe, reliable, affordable, and sustainable electric and gas utility service to our customers. It's a great team that I get to work with every day, and I really do appreciate the hard work from everybody within that department. We'll go over just quickly what we're going to talk about today. So Mr. Cadorn's going to talk more about our supply costs and our efforts to stabilize and even reduce those supply costs. Also meeting our customers' needs. And I'd like just to say thank you to the City Manager's Office and Council for your support over the years and helping us in providing staffing and the equipment that we need in order to meet our customers' needs. Also talking about, it's rather unique for a city to have a natural gas and electric utility. And with that comes some unique needs, I think, in succession planning and cross-training folks. These are highly skilled positions that people have. They're very important positions. People expect their lights to be on all the time. They expect natural gas to be delivered. And so making sure that we have succession plans in place, making sure that we're providing opportunities for folks to come into the department and work their way up through the department and learn those skills is important. And then lastly, a little bit, and we'll hit on this not only in the presentation, but there's going to be another presentation, I believe it's agenda item 4, with the Mesa Climate Action Plan, where we'll talk more about sustainability. All right? So with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle, who's going to talk about our SAIDI index.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. We're excited to share our performance in keeping the power on for the residents and businesses here in the heart of Mesa. This slide here highlights our electric system average interruption duration index, or SAIDI. SAIDI is the industry-wide metric utilities use to measure the average outage duration for their customers. So essentially a lower SAIDI indicates fewer and shorter outages, leading to a more reliable system. Our SAIDI performance, shown in blue here, over the past few seasons has remained below target, which is there in orange. And this demonstrates Mesa's commitment to delivering reliable power to our community. We believe that that's the Mesa way. If there's no questions, we'll move to the next one.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like, I shouldn't, but it's kind of a nuanced thing. So is this the total per quarter? Is it the average? What is the number?
So the number that you're seeing there, we can maybe just kind of hone in on the first dashboard there. So the blue number is the actual, and so that's 1 minute of customer interruption for all 18,900 customers. You can see, and that is the 6-month seasonal average there. So if you look at the next graph up, you kind of see that in the summertime, that number goes up because of weather-related infrastructure failures, maybe transformer fuse, transformers, cable faults, things of that sort.
So it was the average for that period of time, or,
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
this is the average.
all right. So do we evaluate how often or how many times?
Yes, ma'am, there are, we take all of the numbers and then we apply that
I see.
through the seasonal average.
Okay.
So it's a
All right.
cumulative of the events and the amount of time that it was out for those events.
It's an accumulative
Right.
figure then. Okay, the total during that stretch. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And I think one of the things that this does show as you look at it is that there has been investments made into the electric utility. A lot of the investments that you see within there are poles, transformers, and a lot of it's at our substations that are behind walls. So sometimes it's not what the residents or our customers see, it's what's behind the walls that are the pieces and parts that actually make the utility reliable. So this is a key part, and I think we do very well when you look at it in comparison to our others.
And sometimes that reliability, is that dependent on our provider? Let's say SR, I know we have our own electric utility, but the delivery is sometimes out of our control, right?
Yes and no, it's been very reliable, at least from, the time that I've been here, and then even going back, paying attention over the years, that the power gets to the Rogers substation. And then from the Rogers substation, it goes to a series of other substations and through our lines to
Okay.
ultimately get to our customers within the electric utility. So as far as it getting to Rogers and being delivered either by SRP or from WAPA, that consistently is happening. And then it's what we're doing once we receive the power ourselves into our system. That's what this measures.
These numbers are solely for our internal system, right? So they're not looking to account for whether power got to us or not. It's once it got to us.
Okay.
How many minutes could a customer expect in a season to not have power when we average it across all of our 18,000 customers?
And then historically, though, we're not seeing issues with getting power to
Correct.
Rogers.
Yeah, so sometimes you hear like, oh, there's an SRP transformer upstream and we couldn't get, it wasn't within our, no?
The only time we had is when they had the fire at the substation, or
Oh.
they had a fire at their other substation, they interrupted
Yes.
us.
Okay, all right.
That's
Well,
once,
It's too much detail and we have a lot of presentations, so we'll keep on moving.
With regards to supply costs, City of Mesa electric customers have historically enjoyed a very large advantage when compared to SRP supply costs across the years. That all changed during the unprecedented changes in the market following the summer of 2021. And during that time, we came to council and city management and asked for help there, and y'all were gracious enough to help us out with ARPA dollars to the tune of $20 million. So that helped our customers absorb the impact of that market shift by smoothing the transition from how the market was before to how it is today. As we understand it, SRP undercollected during that time period. And so what we're seeing now is that SRP is slowly increasing rates to collect those funds. Where we're trying to focus specifically on rate stabilizing for our customers to make their bills predictable and stable throughout the forecast period. And so we're focusing on diversifying our portfolio, seeking to develop our own internal resources, and looking to execute slightly longer contracts than we have historically. So rather than the 1 or 2 year contracts that we've worked with, we're looking to secure more 3 to 5 year contracts to stabilize rates for our customers. any questions there?
The ARPA subsidy, that goes through 2024?
And we spent it before that. I think we just finished.
We're done now, okay.
So that impacts the last 23-24 bar chart fiscal year to date because those funds were used in July, August of this fiscal year, and September, I think, as well.
Okay, our next one is the emergency response times. So this is for our natural gas utility. We have seen a slight increase in these response times. We are hopeful, though, last year, council did, we did receive additional staffing for these positions, they're utility service worker positions. We have been able to successfully recruit for those positions, and now we're in training for them. Training typically takes 9 to 12 months before somebody's able to go out and respond to emergencies on their own. But we are getting to the point that we're starting to see folks who were hired onto those new positions that are trained up and are able to respond on their own. So we're hopeful that this will come back to the levels that we were seeing prior to this year. Next slide.
So for our Energy Resources Department financial summary, on the electric side, fiscal year 23-24 year-end estimates are projected slightly higher than the 22-23 actuals, predominantly due to increases in tree trimming expenditures and personnel service increases for things such as merit raises or merit increases. The 2024 proposed budget for electric remains similar to the 23-24 budget. On the gas side, fiscal year 23-24, the projected expenditures are expected to increase about $1 million over last fiscal year. These increases are due to temporary labor for the utility locating for the city fiber project. We've added 8 new field staff, which Scott mentioned 4 of those in the prior slide. Truck rentals for that staff or other staff due to vehicles shortages. We bought fire retardant uniforms this year for our field staff for gas, and also inflationary increases in fleet costs and material costs. And for fiscal year 24-25, our proposed budget increase is minimal, predominantly to cover those increased fleet costs.
Then with regards to the supply side, we are seeing an increase in market cost, which, so we're forecasting for next year close to $32 million. That's a fairly conservative forecast. We have had some contract price changes, as well as some additional programs like our Smart Peaks program and additional solar in downtown that we're looking to have in operation soon. Hopefully we will be bringing that to council. On the gas side, things are a bit more stable. We're seeing very inexpensive gas supplies, and we also brought on board a new asset manager for our gas portfolio, which is saving customers, I think, close to $1.6 million per year.
Mr. Reddy?
On the gas side, I've been reading some on the Texas market, the Permian Basin being super cheap, even selling, like having people to buy their gas. Are we taking advantage of any of the price reduction that we're seeing in natural gas?
Mayor, Council, and Vice Mayor, we do take advantage of that pricing when it comes through. I think about 60% of our supplies are at a fixed price, so that remaining 40% or thereabouts, whenever market pricing does go negative, we do get paid to take gas. A lot of times when it goes negative, it's because the gas can't actually leave the basin. So there's maintenance on Kinder Morgan system or Transwestern system. In this instance, there was some maintenance on those systems, and so we were getting some of that gas, but I wish it were easier to capitalize on those prices when they came through, but unfortunately they go negative for a reason, and in this case, I think it was a lot to do with maintenance on those systems. Yep. And so our one budget adjustment request is for a gas planning engineer. So our gas planning engineer is critical to the operation of our gas utility in that they are the resource we turn to when a new large customer is coming on the system, when we're seeking to develop our capital improvement program. they are running the gas models to tell us how to intelligently grow the system. And so we were able to onboard that over a decade ago, and we'd like to continue doing that with the addition of our planning engineer. They're also critical for oversight with regards to material acquisition. So gas materials are under a very strict regulatory requirement regime, and so the gas planning engineer oversees that process through the whole process, from creating material specifications to actually reviewing the paperwork for when it comes in. Because if we install materials that aren't allowed under the federal regulatory guidelines that we're subject to, we actually have to go out and dig them up. So having oversight on that process is critical. So that is our one request for this year.
And with that, this is just a summary of that one request, and just to note that this position, we did identify savings within our baseline budget to fund this position. So this isn't an increase, we actually identified savings that we're able to take advantage of and feel this position is necessary for us, and identified that savings. So with that, next slide, if you have any questions, that's the
Ms.
presentation.
Duff has a question.
So system growth in magma, is that the Queen Creek project, or Queen Creek, is that?
And
Yeah, it goes almost all the way down to Florence.
Right. So I know that LG plant, we're supplying
we're in
gas.
negotiations,
We are in
Okay,
negotiations.
so this is,
but they are in our service area.
so it's not going to affect, we're not part of any budget adjustments to accommodate for that in the next year?
We
I
would,
know.
when it's time, we will come for you for that conversation.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I saw expenditure estimates. I didn't see any revenue estimates, or did I, and I just missed it? Because these are enterprise accounts, right? So the point is to generate revenue.
Yes.
Okay. Did I miss seeing what the
No,
revenue was?
you're right, correct, Mayor, we did not, that's not included here, we could get that. The
Yes.
revenues you're covering.
Yeah, we can definitely come back with the revenues. This was the expenditures of the budget. Usually, when we come back and are talking, the revenue side is during that rate process, and they're,
So the end of the year,
Yeah.
fall, we'll have that conversation on the revenues.
And I think the last time we had this conversation, I threw out this idea that we'd lost money on our electric company recently, and that's why we've been subsidizing it with the ARPA money. And that's contrary to the model that we have of having enterprise, using utilities as enterprise accounts to compensate for the lack of a property tax. So if I just want to hear that we think long-term, that model still applies here.
Oh, yes.
I think so. And there still is a general fund transfer that is happening from the electric utility to the general fund. The ARPA funds were used for, as Tony said, that unprecedented spike that happened. What we're trying to do as staff is to try and minimize that as much as possible. And as Tony has taught me over the years with some of this, is we're trying to have more stable pricing as we go forward, as opposed to trying to hit it just at the right point on the market. We're trying to have stabilized pricing. In addition to that, as we talk about with the electric utility specifically, there's significant investment that has been made on the infrastructure in place. Now, going back to the conversation from last week, what we're seeing is as people are developing downtown, it does cost money in order to take an old building, a 100-plus-year-old building that was a yoga studio, and turn it into a restaurant. That just doesn't happen overnight. I know I've heard some of the council members even mention, if you live in a historic home and you start doing some sort of renovations, it's different than if you're in a newer home, just simply because it's the older age. That's not really the utility side in my mind. That is more of where we were having conversations and emails back and forth with Mr. McVeigh today, that it has more to do with availability of equipment and what we need to do in order for a business to come to downtown Mesa quickly, as opposed to what would be the least expensive way. But we do try and work with all of the customers, and when we turn a parking lot into a high-rise apartment complex, there are costs, simply because that's not what the electric utility was delivering when it was a parking lot.
Okay, well, that gets me over the threshold question of that we do continue to transfer funds from the electric company to the general
So
fund.
Mayor, we do it as the whole utility fund, right?
Yeah.
So in each portion it has a part of that, but when we present that fund to you, you'll see water, wastewater, gas, electric, solid waste, all in that, and we'll go through that in the fall. And as you can imagine, there's some pressure here in gas, electric, but mostly with the presentation we received Thursday on the water and wastewater side, that's where a significant amount of the pressure is on the utility system. And so we've tried to say, okay, if we maintain the rates that we've anticipated out into the future, what does that mean? And I think we're going to have some challenges. We're going to have to come back to council. Now, the good news is we're not going to see spikes in our rates, right? We're trying to show kind of this smoothing of the rates over a period of time. And sometimes those challenges don't face us until 2 or 3 years out in significant ways. But the challenge is if you wait 3 years to solve the problem, then you'd be faced with significant rate increases. But we'll be ready to have those discussions in the fall. And we'll have a better estimate. We'll get through the summer, and then we'll be in a position to really kind of help all of us understand the position the city stands as far as the entire utility fund. But remember, by ordinance, the percentage of what is moved from the contributed from the utility fund to the general fund is dictated by ordinance. So there's we don't manipulate that at all. It's already or is set up for us.
All right, thank you. Mr. Freeman.
I do. Here's some softball questions, okay, Scott? I was going to wonder about your employee retention and about hiring new employees. You kind of did an overview on that, but how's that going? Are we keeping our employees?
It's going well. In my conversations with Mr. Nicholson next to me here, we're doing very well on the electric utility side in filling positions. We had some openings, but we've had a lot of interest in those lineman positions. And we're also in the process of some succession planning where we have apprentice positions that then move up into journeyman lineman positions that you can move up into a foreman position, ultimately the superintendent. So there's a nice progression that you could see within the department. On the natural gas side, we had some issues last year in filling positions, and it was interesting. I think what we needed to get through was you promote from within, because again, with this group, there's, really, you've got Southwest Gas and you've got City of Mesa that are providing this service. So unless we're bringing in people from the outside, there's not a lot of folks that have the experience and the expertise that we're looking for. So we end up promoting a lot from within. We're finally getting to the point that we're filling those now entry-level positions as people have been able to promote within the department. But I think it's a great story of being able to get a job at the City of Mesa, start as a field worker, and be able to work your way up into a deputy director position along the way. And that's one of the things that we talk about, is that this is the type of organization that you can work at for decades. We'll train you, we'll provide you education, and we'll really try and work with you to promote you to the highest level you're comfortable at. So.
Yeah, good, thank you. The savings on the gas engineers out from the consultant side, I saw a little snippet there that there might be some savings on a consultant, or does it not apply?
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, it's within the energy resources budget, just cuts from temporary labor and other, it's not from the consultant, but the savings would be not in having to hire a consultant.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you. So other than Western Area Power Authority and SRP, do we receive our power from any other sources other than our own local sources? I know we have our solar. So Tony, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, Mayor, Council. Right now, our portfolio consists of about 20% federal hydropower between Parker Davis Project and Colorado River Storage Project. The vast majority of the remainder is a series of 5 contracts with Brookfield Energy and Constellation Energy currently. Then we have, we are very recently closing in on, if not maybe exceeded, 2 megawatts of rooftop solar. So our customers who have solar on the rooftops, which is a big deal for us. We have the 800 kilowatts of solar in downtown And then we're looking to hopefully move forward, bring forward here soon, another 2 megawatts of solar in downtown. And then beginning January 1st of 2025, we have a 16 megawatt renewable energy deal with Salt River Project that'll be beginning. And that's, I think, the first time we've formally purchased energy from SRP in 2 or 3 decades. So it's perhaps overdue, but we're looking forward to it.
Okay. Any natural gas generation on the horizon?
It's on the horizon. So we're working through the financials of our first 3 megawatt gas microgrid right now. And so we might be bringing that back to council here in May. But we're also evaluating the site just west of Rogers to see what opportunities are there. We have a formal solicitation document put together on that. Just seeking review from consultants and third parties on that to make sure we're asking for the right thing in the document.
Okay, good. That's all I have. See, you can play the game, softball.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, council, any additional questions on gas and electric? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. McVeigh, or Mr. Boucher, I think you stick around, or
I get to, yes, we'll do a little switch out, but I get to stay.
All right, item 2B is a presentation and discussion on the Environmental Sustainability Department budget.
You want to take it? All right. Mayor, Council, good afternoon again. Scott Boucher, Energy Resources Director. This time I have Rachel Butler, who's our Management Assistant 2, and Laura Heineman, who is our Deputy Director, and we're going to talk about the Environmental and Sustainability Department budget. Move on to the next slide. First, I would again like to say thank you. So I've had the pleasure of working in this department for 24 years now, and I must say the last couple of years have been some of the most exciting years that we've had in the department, and I'm just really proud of the staff that we have and the fact that they've really stepped up to this challenge with the Climate Action Plan and all the focus that we have had on environmental and sustainability, and just the great job that this group does on a day-to-day basis. So when you look at our public purpose, it's proactively and responsibly protecting and conserving Mesa's environment and natural resources. And the group went through an annual planning process, and really these 4 areas are the focus that they've been working on over the last year, which is carbon neutrality, clean air, land and water, water stewardship, and then getting back to a similar conversation that we had with the electric and natural gas utility with employee infrastructure, and really developing employees and giving them that same opportunity that I've been given over the last 20 plus years to develop within the department. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Heineman, who's going to talk about some performance measures.
The first performance measure we wanted to show you was carbon neutrality. You can see this is city energy use in kWh, which is electricity. It's really trending down, it's decreasing over the last several years, primarily due to our continued conversion of streetlights to LED, and then there's reduced pumping for water treatment and distribution, and there's been some efficiencies incorporated into the wastewater plants. So those have all contributed to this reduction. The sustainability team is working on a Socrata dashboard that will show building facility managers and others that are interested in energy use per facility, so that they can take a look and see how they're doing and how they're performing. Also, our group will be able to look in if there's an anomaly in energy use, what's the purpose, and will help them prioritize energy efficiency projects moving forward. The next performance measure is related to clean air, land, and water. The pie chart on the left, it kind of shows our training schedule. So every employee in the city of Mesa who has responsibility related to air quality, storm water quality, or hazardous materials is trained for complying with environmental regulations by the environmental team. What was added and what's noteworthy in this chart is the environmental team added environmental awareness and MCAP training to new employee orientation. So every new employee that comes to the city of Mesa has a general understanding of how they can participate in these very important initiatives that we're working on. The chart on the right is a new waste diversion program that the environmental team is piloting. They're working with facilities maintenance and engineering on some collection strategies, and they have been able to divert 30,000 pounds of electronic waste over the last year or so. Always thinking of new ways to implement MCAP.
I'm sorry, what's electronic waste?
Oh, that is, you know, all these LED conversions that we're doing, they have an electronic ballast. So you can't just send them off to the landfill. They needed to be
Oh, I'm
handled
sorry,
carefully.
okay.
So they have actually come up with a program that's pretty much neutral in terms of the cost of getting rid of the material plus what we collect for revenue to pay for the containers, so.
Great, thank you.
Sure. The next slide is she sort of highlights our residential grass to zero escape program started here in 2007. It really showed a significant increase in the last couple of years, and the staff has given you some notations as to why. When the stage 1 drought declaration was made, and then there were increased incentives in January of 2023. Let's see, the team is always looking for ways to improve this program. One of the things they rolled out here in the last year was an app that residents can use to understand how the landscape coverage requirement applied to the Xeriscape application. So it's always looking, they look at this data on a regular basis.
I'm sorry, I think we have a question about this. Go ahead.
Sure.
The completion seems like it's not in proportion to the application. Is that a time delay, or just people are apply to find out more information but then don't take those measures?
I think it's a combination of reasons, and our staff has kind of, again, collected data on what's causing this. These, you know, replacing your landscaping is quite complex, and it can be quite costly. So some people just want to find out what this incentive is about, and then they think about it. Some come back. Our staff does a pretty good job with follow-up, so, you know, to help people through, because our goal is to help people.
Application and response, and hopefully
Right.
have more people make the change. Thank you.
I have the same question. It looks like, you know, less than half of the applications were completed, and I'm just curious to know why. Is that because, I mean, are these completed applications, or are they people that requested an application and then never followed through on submitting the paperwork?
It's that very first step in the process where they say they're interested in learning about the grass to Xeriscape. They've maybe heard about it, and they want to find out what this, maybe I can get $1,000.
Okay.
Once they really get into that and figure out what it's going to take in terms of the cost and the complexity generally, although I'll tell you there's a wide range of reasons they drop out. You want me to send the information?
No, yeah, and I think one of it is, this is the first step in the process, because if you're going to get a rebate before you begin work, you can't just send us photos that say, oh, here's a before and after of what I did, and, you know, I would like to get a rebate. Before you start the process, like, this is the very first step that they're taking. And as Laura said, some folks go down a path and then decide that they don't want to do the conversion. Some folks, we don't hear back from them. Others complete it. And I think you are also seeing a time lag that's happening here. What we're hoping, and you're seeing a little bit with the chart, is that with the increase in the incentive, we're going to have more folks that do participate in that. In addition now, as you see in the number of applications that we're getting, we did get funding last year for a water conservation specialist that is going to be focused on the residential grass to Xeriscape program. So that is also going to allow us to provide more follow-up to those folks and making sure of, okay. And I think the hope is, if we do identify things that are more roadblocks for them, is there a way that we can bring those down while still keeping the program the way that it's meant to be, and we're getting the benefit that we are. Because this isn't a grass to just rock your yard program. We do want it to be xeriscape, to where you're having plants, you're planting trees, and you're creating shade, not just a barren rock
So I think
yard.
that becomes a factor.
Yeah.
Right?
It
So it's
very
not
much.
just simply you're using less water. There's a shade element to it, and so that may be an issue for people with
Okay,
golf.
so I didn't apply for this, but for example, I'll just use my own yard as I just replaced the turf with artificial turf. I didn't do additional landscaping above and beyond that. So I would not have been eligible because I didn't do something other than just take out natural sod and replace it with artificial sod.
Right, because it's not a grass to artificial grass program. It's a grass to xeriscape program
Okay.
that requires a certain percentage of coverage once those plants are fully mature, plants or trees, that we'll calculate that in. We have a calculator that helps you figure out what that would be, but it's not one that is just for converting to artificial turf.
And part of that is the cooling effect, right, that we get from plants, whereas just artificial turf or rock, it actually increases the temperature that you had before. So part of it is that, and, want to increase shade, of course.
Right. There's the dual benefit of the water conservation and the cooling effect that you get from those, because you are getting that cooling effect with the grass. And now we're trying to get that same cooling effect, but through plants and trees.
Interesting. I think we all would like to see more conversions, right? To less water going to outside irrigation. So and in a city of our size, it seems like we ought to be incentivizing more than 60 people a year to do that. So I'd love to find a way to expand this.
We'll continue to work.
And we're hopeful, as I said, with the increased incentive and now dedicated staffing, that we'll be able to handle this on a full-time basis, that you're going to see more of that comes. In addition to that, with the MCAP, we can talk a little bit too about a commercial program that is beyond just the residential side of this too.
All right, thanks. I look forward to hearing more about that.
So looking at the financial summary for environmental and sustainability, last fiscal year, we became our own department partway through the fiscal year. So this report does not account for the nearly $550,000 in spending that we did as a department while still a part of solid waste department. We're a division within solid waste last fiscal year when we began the fiscal year. Additionally, we transferred out $180,000 to fleet EV charging. That's no longer encompassed in our budget for last fiscal year, so we couldn't spend on that amount. This fiscal year, we added a few new positions, and we increased our sustainability program through the neighborhood tree planting program, increased grass to xeriscape incentives, and the Water Use It Wisely enhanced marketing campaign that was a regional effort. We have transferred out $250,000 to fleet EV charging, and again, that brings down our operating budget for this fiscal year. Looking to next fiscal year, we have not transferred out any funding as of yet, so our entire base budget is intact next fiscal year, and additionally, we plan to keep our increased grass to xeriscape incentives and our neighborhood tree planting programs, which brings our proposed budget up to $3.5 million for next fiscal year.
And then, similar to energy resources, there's only one budget adjustment, and this is also identified with savings within the department, within our baseline, and that is for an administrative support assistant 2. When you look at the amount of work that the group is doing, and also as we'll talk about the MCAP in the next presentation, the amount of grant funds that are coming in within the group, it has created the need for some additional admin support. And so this is a position that will be able to take care of some of that admin support and help Rachel out with admin and be able to have her do some higher duties that she isn't able to get to, because right now she's processing invoices on a regular basis just to get the bills paid for us, so. And with that, that is the presentation, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions on environmental sustainability?
We're just proud of time to spin them off and create a separate department. So
Yeah.
we need to kind of give them a little support to be able to do that. So that's what you're seeing here.
That's great. Thank you. You're doing a great job. We appreciate you. Congratulations on all the awards you've been piling up.
Thank you.
All right, next, item 2C is a presentation and discussion on the Mesa Climate Action Plan.
We having fun yet?
I love that Scott's running the computer for Laura.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Scott Boucher again. We had Laura Heidemann. So we wanted to give you an update on the Mesa Climate Action Plan. Just one last thank you. I know I've been thanking everybody here today, but truly, I want to thank the departments within the city of Mesa and the mayor and council for support on this. This is a city-wide initiative. This is not, Laura and I get the pleasure of sitting up here and presenting on the Climate Action Plan, but as we go through this, you'll see it's the departments outside, it's environmental and sustainability, of course, but it's the departments outside of environmental and sustainability throughout the city who are implementing projects that are really helping us move forward towards the aspirational goals that we have. And so as we're talking today, this is not just the work of environmental and sustainability. This is the work of the city of Mesa and the departments here. So what we're going to do as we go through this, really there's kind of 4 different ways. We're going to talk about department-funded projects that support the MCAP. We'll also talk about previous fiscal year MCAP projects and progress that we're making on those previous fiscal year. We'll talk about grant funds that we've received over the last year and been awarded and how that's going to help us in tracking towards MCAP. And then finally, we have proposed projects for this fiscal year with MCAP funding that we will discuss. So with that, we'll get right into it, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Heinemann.
I do want to reiterate, Scott, this has just really been a citywide initiative, and the participation in this has been outstanding. I like showing these projects as climate projects because they really do help us become a climate-ready community, to become more resilient and sustainable. These are funded through CIP or operational funds. Of course, the smart utility meters, the AMI, that just focuses on conservation, helping you manage your resources well. I wanted to highlight the streetlight replacement program. I mentioned it before. It's just that working year after year on the program is just really reaping benefits. And the last one, if you've driven up and down our streets, you've probably seen transportation's grass conversion projects in the rights of way and their beautiful landscape refurbishment projects. And all of those contribute to, making us a more resilient community. Over the last 2 years, the city has invested $15.4 million in MCAP projects, and that's really impressive. These were projects that would not have been able to have been done without this designated MCAP funding. So it's kudos to council for understanding the importance of these things. I'd like to, in the next few slides, highlight a few of the great projects that have gone on. The Community Electric Vehicle Adoption Plan was initially given some seed money through MCAP. It really became, it was able to be used for the larger DOT grant that Ian and his team were able to achieve. I'll talk a little bit more about the Watershed Protection Project in just a minute, but Flare to Fuel has begun construction. There's a photograph there. It's infrastructure you or the public is probably never going to see. But being able to take that methane gas that's just being flared off today, treat it, and eventually turn it into renewable natural gas moves our climate action plan forward in a significant way. We continue to work on traditional energy efficiency projects, and we've done some solar projects over the last few years.
Laura, where's the Flare to Fuel? Where's this construction?
That is a concrete slab that was poured at the Northwest Water Reclamation Plant.
Okay.
And Lauren, who is here, one of the things that we'll talk about is the end is being able to come back and really talk to you about these projects in more detail. And I'm sure she'd love to do that.
But yeah, that's construction at the Northwest plant.
Yep. So, next slide. The Trees Are Cool initiative, it has been a very active year for this initiative. We've introduced new shade tree programs for Mesa residents. We've had community planting events. We've planted new trees in city parks, at transit centers, around city buildings. All these efforts have really started the ball rolling in terms of this Million Tree Initiative by 2050. We used MCAP funding last year to provide some additional funding to the Water Use It Wisely marketing campaign. With regional partners, 7 regional partners in all contributed extra money. And the campaign that gave them the capacity to do create new content, implement new tactics in order to really get the word out into the community, making people aware of water use. The map there kind of shows the distribution around the entire region.
I'm sorry, can you, programmable display locations, does that mean these are areas where we are dictating, we were saying use no more than X number of gallons, or I mean, but there's like a smart meter that is programming the amount of water that's being used?
These are more of just an outreach.
Okay.
Some of the photographs that they've used are images on billboards, at the gym, at a gas pump.
Okay.
And on the next page, I'll kind of highlight a few of the tactics that they use, but these were the programmable displays. That's why you see gyms, movie theaters. If you're sitting waiting for your movie and the Water Use It Wisely image comes up with a fun message to just get you thinking about how you use water. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So the initial numbers are coming in for the first half of the campaign, the fall campaign, kind of focus on a fall and a spring. Spring, they're still working on, it's still out there. But the numbers from the fall campaign were pretty impressive. 3.4 million views on public service announcements on connected TV. And then here's a fun one, which they would have only been able to do with this additional funding. 1.2 million impressions through the Phoenix Suns sponsorship. They had videos during the Suns game, so you kind of have a captive audience there. It's been an exciting program for them. They had nearly $750,000 to spend on this campaign this year. And there, if you'd like to get more information, the year-end report is available on the wateruseitwisely.com website. So that's kind of how we spent MCAP dollars, and just kind of highlights. We have been working, as Scott mentioned, on grants. The sustainability team, which is a large group, a small but mighty group of people, have written and been successful at getting nearly $3.3 million worth of grants for MCAP. Highlighting the first couple, the $1 million grant to remove non-functional turf at 50 parks. Scott mentioned it earlier. They received from WIFA nearly more than $900,000 to create a comprehensive program for outdoor water conservation for non-residential customers. So it is not only increasing the incentives for Grass to Xeriscape, it's giving them access to WaterFluence, water budget software, and then being able to provide some landscape assessments. So it's really a big picture. These will be some of our highest water users, HOAs. And so we've begun to get those applications in, so that's going to be interesting. And then we got some grants for urban forestry, planting trees, and energy efficiency projects. And then we are a member of several coalitions that are working together regionally or statewide on grants. And a couple important ones are developing some model building codes for efficiency and resiliency for building or projects that are being built in the desert Southwest, testing some resilient solutions for urban heat, how are they effective or not, and then also continuing to plant trees in disadvantaged neighborhoods. So we've done a lot, but there certainly is a lot more to do to achieve our climate action goals and be a climate-ready community. So we would like to talk to you a little bit about what we are proposing for the next fiscal year. $5.4 million in MCAP projects for the next year. And I'll hit the highlights on the next couple of slides. So solar and EV charging. The first bullet point up there is running a pilot project where we're pairing solar generation with electric vehicle charging. And depending how that project works, it might be able to guide future plans for EV charging. We are installing the next phase of charging at city facilities. 4 fleet vehicles, and then some electrical upgrades for downtown solar. So often when you do solar projects, you need to put in new transformers, new switch gear. This will just take some of the pressure off the ratepayers and help install new solar downtown. The watershed protection program is an exciting program that uses the thin forest materials as biomass to generate renewable energy. It also helps to protect our forests, making them more resilient, and protect our watershed. Trees are cool. Looking ahead, this is an interesting one. We're not quite asking for as much funding this year because we found that our corporate sponsors and grants are really helping us move our neighborhood tree planting program forward. The real change that's happening with this is we're thinking of trees as a very important element in our community. Green infrastructure, we think of gray infrastructure as the roads and the sidewalks and the water lines. Green infrastructure is the trees that grow, the landscaping's there. They're just so important to cooling our community, making it livable and economically vibrant. We'll come back to you when we've turned the red squares green.
Great, Ms. Pillsbury.
That's our goal.
Real quick on the trees are cool. Did you guys find someone to run that project yet?
We did.
Yay, okay, we've been anxious to hear.
Our urban forest program manager is starting on Earth Day, April 22nd, which we thought was very fitting.
Love it, that's exciting, good.
I have a great idea for turning some of those red squares and making a statement for our city is getting some shade trees in downtown to make that statement that we are about trees, and certainly with the growth that we have here. No, it's not in our neighborhoods. There is great benefit, the cooling and everything, and an economic side to it. Also, I don't know if we have any budget to do something about placing trees on Main Street.
Are you saying Main Street specifically?
Or in downtown, there's empty trees, there's trees that aren't really shade trees. They're, most main streets or whatever, they have a framing of shade trees. It's a thing, it's a placemaking thing, it's an economic ROI thing, and it is the cooling thing, especially with our heat. Is there any possibility of doing something on that in our downtown? Especially making this statement, we're about trees are cool.
Yes.
It's important to Mesa.
I can tell you,
it's in our downtown.
Mr. McVeigh and I were walking downtown last week and having some of those conversations and looking at some of those empty
Okay.
tree wells, and it looks like maybe RJ, you want to come up and
I know
have a little bit of a
Well,
conversation?
it's
Raised a few.
both doing it, but it's also working with the property owners because we have this conflict sometimes about whether they want a tree in front of their property or not. Yeah, Good covers up their signage, but as far as getting the tree wells
Years ago.
set up so we can put a tree in there,
So Mayor, Councilmember Duff, I did ask our staff to put together a project, because what you don't see is the poor condition of the irrigation in downtown. Much of it was cut when light rail was put in, and so we're gonna be bringing a project forward for next year's budget to completely upgrade both the irrigation systems, going sort of Main Street from First to First is the limit we've set right now. I know that you've asked about some other trees in your district as well, which we're looking at. But that, to ensure that the trees can survive, we really do need to upgrade the irrigation
the
system.
infrastructure is very, very important. So you said next year's budget, that isn't 24, 25, you're talking about 25, 26?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I would support that too. I love that idea.
That fits in with next
Next.
project?
Grass to xeriscape conversion at city buildings. The first project that we're going to work on is the municipal building, and if you think of the number of water customers that come into the building, the folks that are coming in development services, it just seems so fitting to have a beautiful xeriscape out front to really showcase what does this 15% tree canopy cover mean and how can it benefit a site. So we will be working on that. In fact, people are so excited, it's already started. So then, you know, we just got to keep going with our traditional energy efficiency projects. This is LED lighting at sports fields. You know, there's so many benefits. There is energy savings, maintenance savings, and then also the quality of light and reducing horizontal glare.
And so one of the things that we did hear from the council during your strategic planning was more updates, more regular updates on the MCAP and the progress that's being made. So we're looking at doing quarterly MCAP updates. You know, we can hit on the focus areas. One of the things that I'd like to do also as part of that employee infrastructure development is have others that are up here talking about the MCAP and the progress that they're making on their goals and what they're doing in their day-to-day jobs and how that focuses towards the MCAP. And so whether that's with full council, also with the Sustainability and Transportation Committee, we can come. A lot of times when we come here, we're able to, you know, we've got 15 minutes and we're talking about all 6 focus areas and years worth of work that's being done. And I'm getting the impression that council sometimes would like to go into some deeper dives on this. So with these updates, we'd be able to go into specific areas within the MCAP and do some deeper dives for you and really be able to get into more of the detail that I think council has expressed a desire for.
And Scott, I'm looking at the website now to sort of refresh my memory. Do we have some kind of measurement that we keep on our sustainability website to show that a progress bar or anything like that?
We do have dashboards that are on there that are showing like energy usage, water usage, those sorts of things that are on there. That is a dashboard that's regularly updated. And we continue to work with the performance management group to improve those dashboards to make them more user-friendly, add additional ones. So yeah, that is available onto our website.
Okay.
Thank you. I know that when we were developing the climate action plan, we did a lot of community input and engagement, and especially with like young people, teenagers, young adults. Do we have any ongoing programs where we're specifically for like young people? Any ongoing inputs or projects or partnerships with young people to keep getting, this stuff changes, right? Like there's constantly new ideas and new things that different places are trying. And I'd love to get our youth involved in stuff, and this seems to be something they're really passionate about. So do we have ongoing programs with that?
One of the grants that we did receive was through Bloomberg that is focused on youth and providing them with an opportunity to really get involved with the city and climate action plan. And so that is a project that is going to be moving forward over the next year as we work.
And that's through Mesa Public Schools, or is it through us and we partner with Mesa Public Schools?
It's for 15 to 24 years old, so it'll hit the very top of that. But I think it's a very interesting age group.
Yes.
These are the ones that are just starting their careers. The format of it is unique. They're going to apply for micro grants and no more than $5,000. And so we can just give $40,000 worth of micro grants to youth.
So we're working
test
with
those ideas
high schools, community colleges.
Yes.
Colleges, all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff to try to get their ideas. Okay.
And I think another one is Hacktivate. Over the last several years with Hacktivate, we've had something that's been focused on the climate action plan specifically. And Laura's done a lot of work with. I personally know a couple of the teachers that have been involved in Hacktivate and the students and the feedback that we get from the students. They really enjoy being able to participate in that. And I think that's another example of a great event that provides youth with an opportunity to really provide their input in city operations and then see it from a real world perspective of, you know, the data that goes behind it and what's involved in actually making projects.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, just want to make sure we keep our youth engaged in this, well, our whole community, but yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Before Frankie goes, I just want to, this grant is very cool. The grant proposal came out of Hacktivate. right? I mean, we became aware of the Bloomberg funding to engage young people in climate action plans, $50,000. So the grant proposal was generated by the kids at Hacktivate. And I think it's the Mayor's Youth Committee that will kind of take the lead on getting this 50,000 out the door. If we're successful, and we will be, in getting it out the door in a timely way, we get $100,000. Wow. So it's a nice story because it's created by the kids at Hacktivate. They'll be play a critical role in getting it out the door, and then there's a big reward for doing it.
And kudos to Evan Allred, who runs Hacktivate. He is managing that grant and figuring that.
Frankie?
2 items. You all mentioned, maybe this is not the discussion here, but the AMI smart meters. Is there any update on progress? It seems like it's taking a while. Have we gone over the hump of some of the supply chain and challenges that we've had?
So I think we discussed that recently, that when we came and did the purchase for the increasing dollars for the purchase,
Yeah.
we are now going beyond the pilot programs, and we're getting those meters purchased now. And that
So
was,
there's an influx of.
yeah, we had to add, Candace, how much more did we have to add to for the cost of the meters and the boxes?
Total contract is $10 million.
Yeah, so we came to council with that, and that's where, so now we can move forward.
Okay.
And we are actively in the electric utility now installing AMI meters.
Okay.
So that is happening with the contractor. And then from the natural gas utility, because I can speak to those 2 utilities personally, all the meters that we're installing on the natural gas side are now the AMI meters, and we are actively using city staff to replace the old meters.
Okay.
And a contractor to replace when it's just the node that's needed.
Okay. So what's the timeline now as far as when the public can utilize, as we're putting these smart meters, utilizing that?
So it's,
The harness that-
there's the hardware, and then there's the software, and the software is still lagging behind.
It's still
We have
lagging.
to work on that.
Okay. And then my second question on the charging, the solar and charging stations. Have we looked at battery storage on some of these solar facilities that we have in the city? Or is there an opportunity there to locate battery storage, if that makes sense, or somewhere else? I know we talked about microgrids and I think also battery storage, but wondering where, I'm assuming the placement of that to harness some extra solar probably to store that and disperse it to our grid.
Yeah, so we are exploring battery energy storage projects within the electric utility and then also on a utility scale. So we didn't quite touch on it during the energy resources update, but as we're looking at utility scale solar projects that Tony Cadord and his group are looking at contracting on, there's also battery storage contracts that we're looking at trying to be a part of as part of that. In addition, when we look at the Rogers substation, where we talked about maybe the ability for natural gas generation, that also might be a site that makes sense for us to do battery storage. And it makes sense both from a being able to deal with the, decline in solar when you're having the increase in energy use, but also from a resiliency standpoint, that you'd be able to have stored power that is local, that we'd be able to then maybe dispatch using certain circuits for critical infrastructure within our electric utility.
Okay, thank you.
Alicia?
So the solar and electric vehicle charging, the approximately 3 million, does that include, include the match that we're required to come up with for the federal grant? Is this related to that at all? This is just our budget line?
Internal
Okay.
fleet.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That we are,
Supporting our fleet.
okay. Not public.
There is
The
a
public is the.
The public
Public
side,
facing.
yeah.
I think there is a $3 million match for the $12 million grant, but Ian explained to me that doesn't have to come from, that doesn't have to be city money.
Right.
That can be the partners, that we're working with.
Okay, yeah.
They can, you'll do a better
You're
job of explaining.
absolutely correct, yeah. So about $12 million from the feds, $3 million local match. But if we partner with somebody, they have to come up with the match, not us.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah,
Okay. And the LED at sports fields, will that include all of them? Is that gonna cover the rest?
No, that is certain ones that's at Red Mountain Sports Complex.
We've already started some, and this is just continue
This
the
is-
not transition, the conversion.
The
Sorry.
conversion.
So I saw solar as well at Red Mountain. So there's solar and there's this LED conversion going on?
The solar is just a refurbishment of an existing solar
Oh.
system. You probably can't even see it. It's behind the ball fields between the water treatment plant. We need to retrofit it, upgrade it.
One of
It's
our
been
early
around. Yeah.
installations.
That was, yeah, actually, it started as an R&D project with a Mesa facility that was producing the glass. So it's a concentrated photovoltaic system that has dual access tracking. It's a very complex system that has worked for many years, but the tracking system is what is having issues, and so we're looking at going fixed with those, putting solar panels and having it as a fixed system. But really, it started off as an R&D project for a company that was located in the city of Mesa, and that was kind of their test area that they were using. That was the beginning of that project. It's one of the first projects I worked on as sustainability director.
Interesting, okay. And then the tree planting, we have 75 in our budget, and then we have another $38,000 grant that we've gotten for the same project.
It's a different project. Those are all kind of tree related.
Okay.
We have some corporate sponsors that are also looking at putting funding into neighborhood tree planting projects, so we'll see what kind of shape. But the Mesa Shade Tree Program was so successful, and the residents, it was probably tinier than we expected, but the residents who participated really liked it, and it's a great way to continue. So we will continue that. We'll have some corporate sponsors, but we also have some grant funding for additional trees.
Do you have off the top of your head the number for the amount of corporate sponsors we did receive for 23-24?
For 23-24, I think we had it was really the transit center at Superstition Springs. So the total contribution, I don't know, they paid for the nonprofit to work on that, and then also the trees themselves.
Do we have a target? Is there a target?
I'll tell you,
that
this
we're
is a
trying?
great question, and we learned from that. I think we shot low. We're like, oh, do you think you can get 40,000? And they're like, sure, okay. In fact, I think that's what the magic number is. But this next one, we walked in, well, I think maybe 75,000. Okay, fine. So we obviously need to, but one of the things we're doing actually is meeting, because we are not a department that generally collects revenue. So there's been a little bit of pushing and pulling. So we want to formalize that process, because I think we've got corporations and businesses, large and small, that want to help contribute. And then encourage them to go out in the community and organize themselves.
And I think that's when the Urban Forester starts on Monday, this is where they will be able to focus their time, instead of it being part-time being handled within the staff and Laura. We're gonna have somebody who's gonna be focused on that urban forest, and where are we gonna be able to make the best investments to take those red areas and turn them green, and then really look at how can we leverage corporate sponsorships, how can we leverage grants, how can we showcase where's the best place to do it. Really excited for that person to be starting on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? That was the end.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Proud of the work you're doing. Mr. Brady, we have this habit of scheduling Jay O'Donnell as the last speaker right when we're out of time.
I wouldn't want to offend her.
I mean,
So go quickly.
okay, because we do have some people waiting upstairs.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
we've got some people
She's
that are
got police
receiving
and fires
awards.
the next budget hearing. I don't think you'll
So
have room
that's-
to do that
okay.
either, so.
Jay, and Sarah, the only reason I'm hesitating is because I don't want to rush you guys, because this is important.
It's kind of our fault,
Yeah.
all of our questions.
So I hope
not
that
them.
I think if there's folks upstairs that are watching this,
Okay.
we'll be there soon.
I know.
They only have about 7 or 8
I know,
slides.
that's not our fault.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Talk fast.
And this is one that we'll probably keep coming back to. So, well, it's not the only last time you're ever going to see this, I guess, I would say it.
Okay, take it away, ladies.
Sure. Mayor and Council, nice to be with you tonight. I'm Jay O'Donnell. I'm the Director of Economic Development, and with me tonight is Sarah Toller. She's the Administrator for the Office of Education and Workforce, and we are here to present the City of Mesa Workforce Development Action Plan.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Wanted to start by just revisiting quickly the current citywide strategy, workforce development strategy that we are using. This was developed fall of 2022 collaboratively between Education and Workforce and Economic Development. And we've been using this over the last about a year and a half to guide our work and further develop initiatives in collaboration. The intention of this plan was a couple of things. Number one, to outline differentiation of services. So, for example, services to businesses versus services to communities, to outline timelines and to define primary roles and responsibilities. We know that looking forward, we need to look at the work that we're doing as a city in the greater workforce development ecosystem and how it overlaps with our partners and how we're working collaboratively with all of those partners and incorporate that into the plan as we evolve. So today we're gonna share an update, kind of a status on where we are, and then we'll work to, in fiscal year 2025, update this based on our progress and the evolution of our objectives.
So this graphic was originally created in 2022 to illustrate the continuum of workforce development touch points that the city is specifically involved with through our department's lines of service. So if you notice on the left, it describes more of the services to the community or to our residents. And if you can see on the bottom, it really showcases how those services are delivered through the departments from early learning and K-12 education through community college, as well as for employees who maybe need to be upskilled in their current or existing positions, as well as maybe some underemployed prospects for prospects who need to be stabilized as well. So on the right then, you have the services that we deliver to businesses, specifically those in targeted industries, and the efforts that have been focused on growing and diversifying the economy in Mesa. So where the two sides meet is where the collaboration happens and the partnerships occur. And this is really across many different departments in the city, not just economic development and education and workforce. So our action plan that we're presenting today is an update on those tactics, as Sarah mentioned. It's not just about the city, but it really is an inclusive strategy and long-term commitment to workforce development. And during the next fiscal year, it's going to be critical for us to really identify and measure and understand the direct impact that the city has with our lines of service, but also to understand how we can best support those other service providers in the market who are working with job seekers and employers to bridge those gaps. As a reminder, there are three major goals in this strategy and in this plan that prioritizes equitable access, mitigating the skills gap, and expanding job opportunities for workers and the retention of those workers for businesses.
All right, so with each of these goals, we wanted to provide kind of a status of the work that we're doing and highlight some of the strategies that we're using. This is not an exhaustive list of the work that we're doing, but just some highlights. So our first goal is to provide equitable access to resources and support for Mesa employers and job seekers. So obviously wanted to highlight Mesa College Promise with this. I know this is a program that you all are very familiar with. And the initial goal of that program was to remove the financial barrier initially for recent high school grads. With the expansion of this program to adult learners, it really has become a workforce development strategy. And we are hoping to provide access to specific and targeted training and certification programs and really expand the program to make it more accessible for job seekers. Next, wanted to touch on the direct services that we provide. So with the Workforce Center at Mesa and then the Mesa Business Builder at the studios, We really see that work as two sides of the same coin, with the Workforce Center providing that information and the resources and the referrals directly to the community members, to the job seekers, and then the Mesa Business Builder at the studios providing that information and resources and best practices to help our businesses expand and grow. And finally, Job Connect Mesa, we're excited, and we will talk a little bit more specifically in a couple of slides about the development of Job Connect Mesa and our partnership with Pipeline AZ. But we see this as a tool to really connect the workforce development ecosystem in our community. So the education, job seekers, and businesses to provide that connection point for them to receive information with our job seekers to really break down their skills, break down their experience into skills and connect those skills directly to opportunities. We also see this as a tool that we can use with the work that we're doing to provide information and data and metrics to help us really guide our work. We have a couple of events coming up in, in June that will bring together two of these groups, the businesses and education, one that Mesa Public Schools is planning and one that we're planning so that we can help promote Job Connect Mesa and allow those two groups to work together. Okay. And then moving on to goal number 2, which is to identify and mitigate the skills gap in hiring. This goal really speaks to the importance of the collaboration between education and workforce and economic development. So first, connecting education programs with industry partners. So making sure that we're helping to facilitate partnerships between those two groups so that economic development is working with and listening to businesses and we're able to connect them with those specific programs that can help support and provide training. Number 2, a large component of our role is acting as a convener between education and our workforce development stakeholders. And so ensuring that we have a mechanism to have that consistent feedback loop. So we see the Education and Workforce Development Roundtable, the Higher Ed Quarterly Convening as 2 ways that we're consistently able to bring those groups together, get information from them to help guide our work, allow them to facilitate collaboration among each other and really align the work that they're doing. And then finally, systemizing work-based learning opportunities. So our role is really creating awareness around and establishing processes for work-based learning opportunities. We know that connecting education to careers helps to illustrate the value of education. And so helping to educate our business community about why they need to engage in this work, and then help building best practices for how they can do it, and modeling how we can do that in the city as well.
Goal 3 is centered around expanding job opportunities for workers and then obviously for employee retention for businesses. And not just retention, but also the development of those existing employees who work in businesses already. The Office of Economic Development is continuing to integrate the connection to workforce services with our business retention and expansion program, our BRE program. The vast majority of the visits when we are out on a BRE visit with companies leads to a discussion around workforce and the challenges that businesses are having associated with filling that talent pipeline and also retaining those workers. So we continue to help identify opportunities to connect Mesa residents with those hiring needs and those employers, and also to work with employers on helping them understand what it takes to have a competitive advantage in the current labor market. We also coordinate hiring events oriented towards specific populations and communities to provide access to quality job opportunities and careers. For example, some of the events that our teams have coordinated and supported include the March Resource Job Fair as part of the Homeless Outreach Project. And then we also hosted a job fair, a neighborhood job fair in December for and along the Broadway corridor, which was very successful. And then developing Mesa's existing workforce is obviously critical, but it's also important that we consider recruiting out-of-state talent to Mesa. And we need to attract additional talent to continue to improve our educational attainment rate and to ensure we have a continued pipeline of labor for the next generation of technology and quality jobs.
Okay, so in addition to the current work that we're doing, we've also identified strategies that we would like to build into as we update our plan. And so just wanted to touch on some of those opportunities that we've identified that will continue to add value to the work that we're doing. So first, to build and expand upon the family and educationally focused service and resources. So for example, Read on Mesa, the Mesa Family Resource Center that will be coming to the library in the fall. Workforce development really begins at the very beginning, so making sure that we're continuing to support and fill in those gaps. Enhancing interdepartmental collaboration and communication. So as you have heard, there's already a lot of work happening within our city, and we see an opportunity to formalize that into a working group. So that all of the departments, even those who are working in the workforce development space peripherally, can work together and align our efforts and really amplify the work that we're doing. We have seen that the Workforce Center at Mesa has become an invaluable resource for the city, and so working to expand, what the work that is happening at the Workforce Center to include additional external partnerships and mobilize some of those resources to include more of our community than those who just come into the center. Being aware of and collaborating with the high-need emerging industries to fill the talent gap, so understanding what is coming and how we can help support it, and then further, once we've identified those, seeking out funding and grant funding opportunities for that. And then finally, as we implement programs and we test the services that we are providing, we want to make sure that we're identifying the most impactful and measurable outcomes, and that we're making decisions based on data.
And speaking of data, that leads us to Job Connect Mesa. So at the hub of all of this is really our partnership with Pipeline AZ, and we're working with them to develop a new iteration of Job Connect Mesa. And this project is just finishing development now in April, and we have an announcement planned for May. This platform will serve as really a localized job board and career exploration platform, and it's really a way to connect the workforce services to educators, to job seekers. It's a place where everyone can come together and find what they need. And as Sarah said, this is a skills-based platform. So while you'll see titles of job occupations, you'll also see skills. So you can really pick out what is a good fit for you if you're a job seeker, and employers can also really recruit more effectively by using Pipeline AZ. We'll also coordinate sessions to onboard employers and case managers to the platforms so that they understand the platform's new features. Pipeline AZ has been around for a long time. We're just taking it now and really white labeling it for the city of Mesa. And by doing this onboarding with employers, we'll have a new revitalized user base for those Mesa job seekers. And so once we get through those sessions, that will happen in May, and then that will be followed by a heavy marketing campaign to really promote Job Connect Mesa. So all of these efforts will generate additional activity through job posts, through applications, career exploration, and then connection to those resources. That will allow us then to really analyze the data that we've collected and make some decisions about what we want to do to expand our services or what we might want to modify that isn't working as well. So we're in the process now over the next few months and maybe even up to a year to really fine tune how we're using this platform and what services we want to bring back and say we need some additional resources in this particular category to help job seekers or to help employers. And finally, to culminate our workforce development program this fiscal year, we're ending on a high note. There are a couple of events, as Sarah mentioned. June 4th, Mesa Public Schools is hosting the Business and Education Summit, thank you. They've done this a couple of years now, and it brings employers together with students, with educators. It's a great networking opportunity. And then we're hosting, in partnership with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, Mark Perna, who is a leading thought leader on the intersection between education, economic development, and employment. And really, he's such a fascinating speaker, and he's incredibly inspiring, but he's a generation specialist, so he's looking at generationally how we need to engage the younger generations, specifically the Y generation, in workforce and how to inspire them. So it's always enlightening when he speaks. He's spoken at a couple of International Economic Development Council conferences, and it's fascinating. So I hope that you can put that on your schedule for June 20th. But it will really help us to learn new ways to encourage training and workforce development, not just for the employers, but also for the educators and educational institutions. But really, it's for all levels of education and experience out there. With that, we will entertain any questions or comments.
Thank you, Council. Council, questions? I have a lot of questions, too. Yeah. I would love to have more time to chat about this, so maybe we'll do it one-on-one rather than during our council meeting. But thank you very much. Appreciate the great work you're doing. Council, I'm going to suggest that there are some young people waiting upstairs, and I just don't want to, we've already imposed on their time a little bit. So let's do our report on current events on Thursday morning. Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future events look like?
See you on Thursday.
Great, thank you.
Don't forget, you have minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you very much. Item 3 is to acknowledge receipt of board minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Ms. Spilsbury and Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that passed unanimously.
Mayor, and if since she won't be here Thursday, I wanted to just acknowledge that I have a shadow tonight. Vanessa Martinez is here from the Mayor's Youth Committee, and she attends Mesa High and EVIT. So thank you for being a part of this and trying to learn more about civic engagement. So thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. We are adjourned, and we'll reconvene in just a minute or two upstairs. Thank you.